G'day, Mahari here. The code with those with borderline personality disorder for don't leave me. So what does that mean? A code that's trying to somehow magically communicate to you, don't leave me. Are you supposed to pay attention to this code? Are you supposed to understand this code? Are you supposed to abide by this code? Is this code manipulative? What is this code about? And how can that be at all healthy for you? Because in essence, the borderline code for don't leave me is also the way that many people still with BPD shirk personal responsibility. Can't rescue them, can't fix them. Let's get into this. So in this podcast video, the BPD code for don't leave me. And just before I get to that, I just want to say, working on my health issues and challenges, as some of you know, others may not know. So hoping to be back in video in some time. Just thought I'd add that in there as a bit of an update that, things are starting to go in a better direction for me, but I have a lot of weight to lose and a lot of mobility to gain. So in the meantime, I'm doing podcast videos. So I hope these are helpful in the meantime. So yes, people with borderline personality disorder, not all, but many, kind of give this code for don't leave me. And it's not a code that people necessarily understand or that people can decode. So it becomes a series of behaviors and or basically tests in a way, a testing process that I don't know if it's always so subconscious, but many people with BPD might be aware of aspects of this. The real difficult reality of this that really breaks down between the person with BPD trying to give a loved one or a favorite person or a family member code for don't leave me or for their fear of abandonment and other issues they're facing is that often people can't decode the code. And the code, it could be said, maybe not intentionally, but is somewhat manipulative, because it's a code for don't leave me that people with BPD put out that is in place of what they don't know how to do unless they get enough treatment, which is actually check in with people about how things are going or be able to express their needs, their feelings. Then people end up with this code from people with borderline personality disorder in their lives. And there are 7 examples of this BPD code for don't leave me that I'm going to outline in this podcast video. The first example of which is getting the silent treatment from the internalizing quiet borderline to test and shift responsibility onto you, right? Like, you need to help and fix and rescue me. Like, you need to come after me because I don't feel that people with BPD don't know how, but I don't feel secure, or I'm afraid you're going to leave me. The abandonment fears come up and more. And so people with BPD are like, I can't come back to you and ask you, hey, are we still okay? What's happening? And it's a childlike response again, too, because of the object other relating, where you do become, anyone close to the person with BPD becomes the object other representation and idealization of good parent in devaluation of the parent, the bad parent. People just with BPD, more or less the quiet acting in ones, will just go silent. They might not talk because they're waiting for someone to notice that something is wrong, that they're feeling really upset or they're not feeling secure. And they're looking, actually, it's a subconscious ploy for rescue. It's a young, childlike way of trying to, it's equivalent to when a young child pouts to get the mother to go, what's wrong? Or, what do you need? Or, that kind of thing. They're waiting for you to notice something's wrong. That's a code, right? So they've given you the silent treatment. And then it's usually because they're afraid of coming across as too needy, because for people with BPD, they don't know how to cope with what they actually need, or they can't trust others or themselves to be able to actually have a conversation about what they need. And the other reason for that often is something is wrong. They do feel hurt or wounded or triggered, or like you're about to leave them. And so they're waiting, they go away because they don't know how to regulate those emotions, or they go into silent treatment. They don't talk to you for a while, or partially there is a punishment element to that, which isn't always the motivation for it. So the first example of BPD code for Don't Leave Me can be getting the silent treatment. And then the flip side of the silent treatment, with the acting out, usually raging, but acting out, externalizing person with BPD, it's not going to be the silent treatment, it's going to be rage. It's going to be, they'll be yelling and screaming all over you or berating you with how come you did this or didn't do that. And it's not necessarily anything you did, not necessarily that there was something that you were supposed to do or know to do that you didn't do. But again, it's that same young child, primal, fear of abandonment, needing something to change for you to help them, as if needing, like a young child needs the parent to come back to them to take care of them at a certain age. So this is their way again of saying something's really wrong, I need your help or support. And when it comes in that externalized way of BPD rage and you're being berated, how are you supposed to decode, just like with silent treatment, how are you supposed to decode that that's the borderline's code for, like, I need a little help here, I know what's going on, I don't know how I feel, are you going to leave me, like, is this going to be okay? It sort of is equivalent, and I don't mean to diminish people with BPD at all. It's an equivalent in the lack of emotional intelligence, right? The age regression of dysregulated emotion that's usually triggered. It's the equivalent of a young child, just like I said, pouting or screaming to get mom and or dad to, like, come over to them, come back into a room and make it okay. Take care of them and soothe them, which is what young children need. But people with BPD often didn't get that in their lives, or they perceive that they didn't. So that's their way of going about trying to give you the code for, don't leave me, silent treatment and or acting out rage, which certainly doesn't give people, how are you supposed to decode that? I hope this will help with that. But still, if you are decoding it, then what are you supposed to do about it? Because you can't take responsibility for someone else, you can't fix them, and you can't rescue them. And really, it enables people with BPD to stay the same. If you do decode, or if listening to this helps you, a podcast video, helps you, then you have to think about, okay, like, my intention here is to help you understand this, not to be saying to you that you need to then go and do this decoding, because then you're going to be enabling, rescuing, and trying to fix the person with BPD. And that's going to set up a situation whereby they're going to be emboldened in seeing you as, subconsciously, as object other parent representation. It's not going to help them to be able to make any changes that they're responsible for getting into therapy to make. The second kind of code for Don't Leave Me that people with BPD will present in various different ways is that they overshare a lot. They just asking for help without asking for help, right? I'm okay, but help me. Or I need to tell you these things because, like, do I matter? Is it, it's a wayward, childlike attempt to connect because they desperately need to connect. They desperately want to connect. And they're also in the repetition compulsion cycle of pain of trying to connect with favorite person or person closest in a way that sees that person as object other good representation or idealized representation of parent, because it's again a pull for the parent subconsciously to come and make it okay. People with BPD can overshare. They can feel compelled to overshare details of information about things that are happening in their life or how they feel in the moment, or maybe they're feeling really uneasy and really stressed, and they might not put it in those words, but they just need to talk about something and they need to be heard and seen. And all of that's pretty human, but some people with BPD will do this not only with favorite person all day long when you're trying to work, or if you're husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, or parent of, or it just is This oversharing. This oversharing is really about, like the next thing I'm going to get into, it's really about dependency needs. So they overshare, but they can do this with acquaintances as well as strangers. And often they don't like what they're doing because it's sort of that, like, in a way, it's like, I hate you, don't leave me, internalized. It's like, I hate me, don't listen to me, but help me. It's very, very complex how it works. And that people with BPD in this code for don't leave me that they're giving people aren't really understanding. It's not like they sit down and think, oh, I'll do this because this will work. It's not calculated. It's just about their lostness, really. Oversharing basically is a way that many with BPD will ask for help without asking for help. And so there's no personal responsibility taking, like I said. And the third way that people with borderline personality disorder try to get you to decode this code for don't leave me, some will get very clingy. They will really cling to you. They have strong dependency needs. And they can get so clingy toward a favorite person or a person close or a partner or a girlfriend or boyfriend or a parent that they always want to know what you're doing, right? They need to know what you're doing, where you're going, who you're doing it with, how long are you going there for, do you really have to go, and when are you going to be back? And of course, all these are sort of like time-stamp expectations that are either going to leave them feeling okay or not okay. So it's the way in which the lack of internal control inside people with BPD is externalized onto you through clinginess and this need to know what's going on, where are you, how do you feel about them. People with BPD feel scared if they're going to see you again. If they don't get a reply from a text or a phone call right away, they get really nervous. They don't understand, maybe always, some do, some don't, but they're fearing abandonment extremely, really badly, and they're worried that it's like there's no object constancy there. When they don't get the phone call right away or the text back or whatever the method of communication is, then they get this idea, this fear of abandonment that says like, oh wow, like this person doesn't like me anymore. I got to make them change their mind. I got to get them to answer me. I need them to talk to me because, again, it's lack of object constancy. And it is that young repetition compulsion patterned. Hey, like when mother walks out of the room, child is afraid mother's not coming back. People get in a clingy place. They're really, really panicked. And if they don't hear back from you, they really just believe everything, that's it, you're going to abandon them. You have abandoned them. So they're actually going through more than fear of abandonment with clinginess in this borderline way of putting out code for don't leave me. They're actually thinking you have left them or believing that. And the fourth way that borderlines have this code for don't leave me is to push you away. I mean, it doesn't make logical sense, does it? Because it's all very highly emotional. So they push you away. They're testing to see if you come closer to make it okay. This is sort of get away closer, but hurry up and get back. But get away closer, but hurry up and come back. The person with BPD be saying, I need to know that if I push you away even, like you're going to pass this test and you're going to come and find out what I need, right? It's another way of asking for what they need without asking for it because maybe they don't know what it is exactly, but they need to be comforted, soothed, calmed down, reassured all the time as part of all this that you are still there. Often people with BPD push people away by creating problems that don't really exist, but often they do this creating problems or repetition, compulsion type triggered dysregulated ways of reenacting old patterns that they're not consciously aware of. They get upset at comments that either you make or you don't make that are directed to them or that they perceive are directed to them that they take personally. So their own pain creates the conflict, and it's to isolate themselves from the pain and the fear of abandonment and other trauma or rejection, betrayal they may have been through. Well, at the same time, so they're pushing you away to isolate themselves, and the code for don't leave me is, you're going to come closer, right? You're going to reassure me that everything's okay, right? Which is that get away closer, which is just going to be cyclical every time it seems to be soothed or worked out by you for the person with BPD in your life. What a person with BPD really wants in the pushing away, testing if you'll come closer, in the code of don't leave me, they really want someone to tell them that they're there for them and that they love them regardless. And the fifth way that people use this code for don't leave me is they'll leave you before they can be left. There's this quote by Marilyn Monroe, quote, "A wise girl leaves before she is left," unquote. So people with BPD push others away and or leave because they're just, it's projective. The more they, and their fear of abandonment, but the more that they need to leave you, it's because they're convinced that you've left or are about to leave them. And it's for control. It's because they feel so out of control, so they want to take control of something to feel safer inside. And they're trying to protect themselves from being hurt, but of course, they don't really realize at this point how much they could be hurting someone who loves them. So they're leaving before they get left to protect themselves from getting left. It's very self-defeating, actually. And they need the control, like I said. So they often will burn bridges to see if the person cares enough, or if you care enough to fight for them, to come back and fight for them. Which again, it's that very childlike sort of, needing the parent to approach, needing parents to come and do what they need to do when you're a very young child. It's repetition compulsion again in that regard. This can happen in any type or form of relationship. This actual leaving before left, abandoning you before they think that you're going to abandon them, but then they feel like you abandoned them anyway because they had to abandon you because they were afraid you were going to abandon them. And even if this helps you to understand, then I wouldn't recommend that you be decoding this, because they're all big red flags for somebody who needs to get help and take personal responsibility. Otherwise, you're going to stay in a codependent, rescuing, fixing kind of mode, and that's not healthy for the person with BPD or for you. It's the way that the cycle of relating often, in 75% of cases, people with BPD, with a parent or parents, will be ruptured cycles of relating. And when a child most needs a parent, that borderline mother, that narcissistic mother, will definitely not be available, and the child's survival needs kick in, because these, again, are infantile defenses. But this code, this is BPD code for don't leave me, and yet they are leaving you. This is all about fear of abandonment on steroids, and its lack of object permanence. They will leave before they're left, and this is also ties into partly why a lot of people with BPD, not all, will hoover. They're waiting for you to decode the code of, I didn't really want, I was, don't leave me. I had to leave you so you wouldn't leave me, but now you need to come back, or they'll hoover back because, like, hey, you do love me, don't you? So that's the crisis between lack of object constancy, which is like they don't have any object permanence, and so then they've created this other crisis for themselves, and they probably really hurt you if you're a loved one going through this. And the sixth way that people with BPD will use a code, the BPD code for don't leave me, is devaluation as a test. Not to say that when they devalue, they're consciously aware of that, or they're going to just do it like, oh, I'm going to sit here today and I'm going to devalue so-and-so because I'm going to see if I'm going to test them. It's not that conscious, but this is what it amounts to. Devaluation as a test. It's usually a plea and a cry for them not to leave. So the very person that gets devalued, from the borderline's perspective, many people with BPD, so-called, it is then their way of trying to get you. The code is, it's a plea and a cry for you not to leave them. That's the code. But they're devaluing you as a test for reassurance and validation that you love them. Well, what's that doing to you? See, they don't know what that's doing to you. They're not aware of what that's doing to you. It's a plea and cry for help, for reassurance that you really do love them, but then they won't believe or trust that. And this is really how, from the person with borderline personality disorder's perspective, but also maybe the loved one, that's sort of like the poison starts, for lack of a better way to put it. It's really fear of abandonment, fear of separation, fear of the distance, which is attachment trauma and abandonment trauma on the part of the person with BPD. They fear in the nature of being connected to someone. They will devalue, and it's a please don't leave me moment for them. But how are you supposed to know that? You're being devalued. You might be being raged at. You might be being highly criticized and judged for something. They might be right fighting against you, and you're sitting there going like, what is this all about? You don't know. Many people obviously don't decode the borderline code of, hey, don't leave me, because it's not rational, obviously, right? And it's not them being in any way being able to be personally responsible to communicate their feelings. So again, I would encourage people, if this is helping you, I hope, to understand somebody with BPD. But hopefully you will know that you need to stop being in the codependent or the rescuer or the fixer kind of parent, unquote, mode with them, because this is not going to help them and it's not going to help you. So the seventh way, and there are more, but I just picked out 7 key ways I thought of, that people with BPD code for what their code is for don't leave me. The seventh way they can put that across to you is that they'll put themselves down for reassurance and validation again. So it's really like, I hate you, don't leave me, but it's like, I hate me through you, so don't leave me. It's fishing for reassurance. They'll speak negatively of themselves. It's a sign that they're not holding object constancy. It's fear of abandonment. It's attachment trauma. They're not attached in a healthy way. They have to put themselves down for reassurance and validation. And in a way, it's going back to for 75% at least, the victimization of their childhood, repetition compulsion, subconsciously. What they do is they tell you, whether in words or actions, with this putting themselves down, they're really saying to you, I'm not worth having, I'm not worth being around, or you're not worth being around. And sometimes they really need that reassurance from the other person to hear them tell them that they're worthy. So they're feeling unworthy, which is really a shame-based feeling, which a lot of people with BPD don't understand what they're feeling or why they're feeling what they're feeling, or they aren't consciously aware of all of this. So coming out of this place of I feel unworthy, which is very shame-based in people with BPD, I'm no good, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm broken. Basically, with putting themselves down for reassurance, validation, they're fishing for that in this code, borderline code of don't leave me. They're actually saying, I hate you, don't leave me. And they're actually also saying, but more to the point, I hate me through you, so don't you dare leave me. So I hope that this was helpful, because the thing is, this borderline personality disorder code that many people with BPD have for don't leave me is something that just vexates. It is painful and traumatizes loved ones or those closest to them. And it's not something that you can take responsibility for. And for people that are doing that in some way, but maybe you don't understand or hadn't had this explanation to go with it before, that there's a BPD code that is young childlike behavior more often than not, with central themes to it that is not really in the consciousness of people with BPD, or not to any sum total, that they are saying, hey, this is my code for you. Don't you get it? Like, come on, because you're supposed to be able to read their minds, don't you know? So even now that you know this, if this helps you, please don't think that I'm trying to tell you, so you should decode these messages, get this, and then respond accordingly. Not at all. Because the need for reassurance in people with BPD who still don't know themselves, still don't trust themselves, still having repetition compulsions, triggered emotional dysregulation to the past, not yet in a stage or place in recovery to where they can take personal responsibility and ask for what they need or check in to see how you're feeling. There's nothing mutual and reciprocal in that for you. So if you do take it, please don't take this information to then work at, now he or she's giving me code for don't leave me because they're doing this or that or the other. Because you can't be. It's not healthy for you to be the rescuer or the fixer. And it's going to enable the person with BPD to keep on doing the same thing. And they're not going to have a chance to learn differently unless they're in therapy. But this is just 7 ways that people with BPD do have a code that is very childlike, where they can't take personal responsibility, communicate something that they've actually never learned how to do, But still, it's a code for don't leave them. And yet it's the thing that pushes people away the most, hurts people the most, abuses people, is disrespectful, and traumatizes loved ones of those with BPD. The underlying code for don't leave me isn't a code. I hope you can understand more. Maybe that'll help some people. But it's not a code that you should ascribe to decoding. BPD are struggling at a very emotional young age unless they get through a certain amount of therapy. Really important. I hope this was really helpful for your understanding. But please know I'm not recommending that you take action with the decoding of the BPD code for please don't leave me. Take care now.